Imagine you are 9 years old. It is early morning. The sun has barely risen, but instead of walking to school with your friends, you are holding a weapon that is almost as tall as you are. You do not fully understand why. You are simply told to follow orders, or face the consequences. This is not a movie scene. This is the daily reality for hundreds of thousands of children around the world. When we think of child warriors, our minds might drift to dramatic television shows or action films, where young heroes rise up, fight bravely, and somehow save the day. These stories are compelling. They are cinematic. They make us feel inspired. But behind the drama and the beautiful costumes, there is a truth so painful that most people never want to look at it directly. Today, we are going to look at it, because these children deserve to be seen. Children are not born for war. They are born for curiosity, for laughter, for scraped knees from climbing trees and arguments over which game to play next. A normal childhood is filled with small, beautiful moments. A mother calling you for dinner. A teacher writing your name on the board with pride. The smell of rain on a summer afternoon. These are the things that shape who we become. Now imagine all of that being erased in a single night. For children caught in conflict zones, whether in parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, or throughout history in ancient and medieval societies, the transition from child to warrior is rarely a choice. It is a theft. Armed groups take children from their villages, sometimes by force, sometimes by fear, and sometimes by targeting children who have already lost everything, children who are hungry, grieving, and desperately alone. These recruiters know exactly what they are doing. A grieving child is easier to mold. A starving child will do almost anything to survive. They take that vulnerability and they weaponize it. Once taken, the childhood does not slowly fade. It is ripped away. The toys are replaced by weapons. The classrooms are replaced by training grounds. The bedtime stories are replaced by commands barked in the darkness. Children who once had names, families, and futures are given new identities built entirely around obedience and violence. They are told that their old life is weakness, that what they are becoming is strength. But it is not strength. It is survival dressed up as something else. The training these children undergo is designed to break them first, and then rebuild them in a different shape. They are pushed beyond physical limits that even adults would struggle to endure. Sleep deprivation, extreme physical punishment, forced marches through difficult terrain, and the constant threat of violence for any sign of hesitation. They are taught to disconnect from their emotions, to stop feeling, because feeling makes you slow, feeling makes you question, and questioning is dangerous. There is one particular moment that appears again and again in the accounts of survivors. It is the moment they describe as the point of no return. The moment where they were asked or forced to do something so terrible that they felt the person they used to be simply disappear. This is intentional. The people running these systems understand that once a child crosses a certain threshold, they become easier to control. The guilt alone becomes a chain. And yet, beneath all of that conditioning, beneath the fear and the violence and the exhaustion, the child is still there, hiding, waiting, hoping for something they cannot even name anymore. The psychological damage carried by child warriors is profound and long-lasting. Post-traumatic stress is almost universal among survivors. Many struggle with severe anxiety, flashbacks, and nightmares that do not stop even decades after the conflict ends. They often describe feeling disconnected from other people, like there is a wall of glass between them and the rest of the world. They can see normal life happening, but they cannot reach it. Identity is another devastating casualty. When a person spends their most formative years defined entirely by violence and fear, rebuilding a sense of self afterward is extraordinarily difficult. Who are you when the war ends? Who are you when the weapons are put down? Some survivors describe looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at them. The child they were before is gone, and the person they became during the conflict is someone they desperately want to leave behind. That leaves a hollow space in between that is incredibly hard to fill. Relationships are damaged too. Trust, intimacy, connection, these are things that are built in childhood through safe and loving experiences. When those years are replaced by trauma and survival, Many child soldiers grow into adults who struggle deeply with forming bonds. They carry wounds that are invisible, but absolutely real. Now let us talk about how the world often chooses to see this issue. Because this is where things become complicated. Entertainment has long been fascinated by the idea of young warriors. From ancient legends of boy heroes to modern television dramas set in historical periods, we are drawn to the image of a young person rising against impossible odds. There is something emotionally satisfying about it. We want to believe that children can be brave and powerful, and that innocence itself can be a kind of weapon against darkness. Korean historical dramas, for example, have occasionally explored themes of young fighters trained in secret, serving kingdoms or causes greater than themselves. These stories are beautifully made and often deeply moving. They highlight loyalty, sacrifice, and resilience. And there is value in storytelling like this. It connects us to history. It builds empathy. But there is a line between honoring struggle and romanticizing suffering. When we frame a child's forced entry into violence as a heroic journey, we risk missing the actual tragedy underneath. The real child warriors of history and of today were not protagonists in an adventure. They were victims of systems that had no interest in their well-being. Their courage, when they did show it, came not from glory, but from a desperate need to survive one more day. The danger of romanticizing child warriors is that it makes the issue feel distant and even beautiful. It makes it easier to watch and harder to act on. And that is a problem, because this is not a historical problem. It is a present one. Right now, in multiple corners of the world, children are being used as weapons. They are being stolen from their families, conditioned to kill, and discarded when they are no longer useful. There are organizations working tirelessly to reach these children, to rehabilitate them, to help them rebuild their sense of self and safety. The work is slow and painful and often underfunded. But it is happening, and it matters. Every child who is successfully removed from a conflict situation and given access to healing, education, and community is proof that the damage, while severe, does not have to be permanent. Children are resilient in ways that are difficult to fully comprehend. Even after extraordinary darkness, some find their way back to something that resembles light. That is not a small thing. That is everything. But rehabilitation requires resources. It requires attention. And most of all, it requires the world to care enough to keep looking, even when looking is uncomfortable. Because turning away is the easiest thing. Looking at the reality of child warriors means confronting how badly the world has failed its youngest and most vulnerable members. It means sitting with the uncomfortable truth that behind every dramatized story of a brave young fighter, there are thousands of real children who simply wanted to go home. They wanted their mothers, they wanted their schools, they wanted the ordinary, unremarkable, beautiful life that every child deserves. A childhood is not a luxury. It is not something that can be sacrificed for politics or power or ideology. It is the foundation of a human life. And when it is taken, something is lost that no victory, no cause, and no story can ever fully restore. Remember the children no one made a film about. They are the ones who needed us the most.